Living morally is a struggle that most, if not all, humans try to overcome. People want to understand themselves, their wants, their needs, their moral standing. They try to categorize themselves or others into mean or nice, in a way that soon enough, this line starts to get blurred. A good person starts to become someone who gives up everything for the people around them, and a bad person is someone who does some unforgivable sin like rape or murder. Everyone else who doesn't fit in these two categories tends to get a little lost in the lines. Societal trends tend to affect these people's character easily and can quickly lead to someone who was once neutral to become unintentionally much worse. In the same way, they can also become much better. One of the biggest contributors to this is microaggressions. And an example of this is Gen Z jokes. The definition of a microaggression is a statement, action, or incident. The definition of a microaggression is a statement, action, or incident regarded as an instance of indirect, subtle, or unintentional discrimination against members of a marginalized group such as a racial or ethnic minority. This is shown more often than people think, especially under the disguise of humor, in my generation, of course. One of the most prominent examples of this that you've surely heard of is saying the phrase, "that's gay," when referring to something stupid or emotional or an ugly shirt. This gives off the idea that things that are gay are, of course, somehow inferior to things that are straight. Another example of this that is fairly new, actually, is the sort of question, are they acoustic? Acoustic is, of course, a play on the word autistic. This sort of joke is surrounding the word is often used as an excuse for a neurotypical person to ask, usually on a TikTok video, if someone is autistic. They'll see a video, they'll see someone acting weird, and their first thought will be, are they autistic? Well, you can't just outright ask that. So they say, are they acoustic? Taking some phrase that would normally be very rude and turning a phrase that would normally be very rude and keeping it the same but under the disguise of humor. The intent behind this sort of comment isn't usually supposed to be mean, but it can be taken as rude or crossing a line. I myself have seen videos of autistic people asking, please don't say this, it's not as good as you think. While the people saying these types of things aren't bad people themselves, they have been affected by societal trends in a way that they are doing bad things. Jesus leads a good example in this area of discrimination because he treated everyone with justice no matter what conditions they have. For example, in Luke 5:13, quote, Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean, and immediately the leprosy left him, unquote. Despite this man having leprosy, a condition that was discriminated against during that time, Jesus still went out of his way to treat him the same he would anyone else. This leads back to where I was talking before. While this type of joke is insignificant by itself, it can be harmful when it's repeated multiple times. That's because when someone is affected by these types of phrases and hears it often, they start to sort of believe it. An autistic person could believe they're very weird simply for being autistic, when normally it's just a light of interest. Phrases like these are quite common in my generation, but they are often overlooked. It's so incredibly normalized to the point that a real insult to a minority is more likely to be a joke than the real thing, though this doesn't really tend to make it any better, even though this topic is so normal. A large part in moral living is not insulting others no matter what. I believe this is something my generation needs to work on in order to achieve true moral living.
The literal definition of human as a noun is this: a human being. As an adjective, it is of relating to, characteristic of, or having the nature of people. In simpler terms, a person is determined to be human by their behaviors, except there are many questions and details that may be further examined from this statement. Our behaviors are a result of our bodies, our brains, the chemicals that make our emotions and feelings and thoughts, the neurological pathways that travel through us, further illustrating how we think is part of who we are as individuals. We, as humans, cannot be grouped into a collective. We are too different. The brain is a common answer to what makes humans special. Our complex thoughts, able to consume, interpret, and visualize a world which may not be there yet. In poetry, expressions, idioms, the brain symbolizes logic. Concrete, reasonable information made by fact and complete understanding. Humans, however, are anything but. We differ in our thinking, ranging from left to right in our views of the world. The response I receive after having explained this reasoning, however, is the complexity. An answer I do not receive, if ever, is our morality given by the brain. In psychology, there is a triangle. I learned about this triangle and the following information from Miss Dalzari, a counselor at St. Thomas More Collegiate. Its name is the CBT triangle. At one of its points is thoughts, another point is feelings, and the last point is behaviors. The human individual is made of these 3 points. Change one, and the others will follow. If we change our thoughts, we will change our feelings and actions. If we change our feelings, we will change our thoughts and behaviors. And if we change our actions, we will change our thoughts and feelings. Who we are is an interlocked forest of emotions and feelings created by chemicals in our brain, determining what we do. Who we are consists of the CBT triangle, and this triangle originates in our brain. So yes, what makes people human is the brain, except it is not just our complex thinking, but how we portray the immense and overwhelming thoughts that originate in ourselves. Yet this process determines our choices between right and wrong. But what defines a morally good person? People are often judged for not having human decency. We as humans have set a standard for decent or average. But what is the common ground of average? We differ far too much on this topic as well. Natural law is a concept made to explain the communal human standards that every person has. For example, the overall world is horrified or against the general idea of murdering another human being. It is expected in our society, presumed in most countries, that murder is immoral and unethical. Except we can go against natural law. Unlike other laws to our nature, we can defy it. And when we defy it, and we will create excuses. But when the people around us do not follow natural law, we will condemn them. We will condemn them because we know in our bones the right actions to take, regardless of the path we choose. We will condemn them because we have an instinct for justice. It is in the guilt we feed ourselves through our heads. It is in the ache of our chest when we see evil. We, as human beings, have the ability to do good. We also have a primal instinct to survive and take and cultivate what we desire. It is a complete and utter decision of any human being to choose the path between selfishness and the well-being of people around us. We have the possibility of both to choose. And that is what makes us so complex. I was once told that there are 4 levels to maturity. The person who explained this to me was my grade 10 band teacher, Miss McClellan, who teaches at St. Thomas More Collegiate. The first stage is you. This maturity is when you are entirely dependent on another person, and every person was there once. When you were a child and cried for food or attention or love. When everything you needed revolved around your parents or caregivers or whoever raised you. The second is I and me. Most teenagers are sadly in this phase. A few examples are, I am independent. Everything is about me. I am responsible. I am in charge. The third phase is we. We will do this together. We will support each other. This is about us. And the third phase is a high level. It is a mature level. But the highest level of maturity is giving. To give and give and give because it will all come back. Giving takes courage. It takes belief that one day your actions might give something back to you. And if you are listening to this, that might come in karma or God or the people around you. It might come in validation or love or physical objects for you to cultivate. Giving is understanding that the only way to survive is to help the people around you. As humans, we are independent of love and validation and affection, and you must give to receive. It takes understanding to be completely good. It takes our complex heads to think of giving. Giving is not easy. Being a good person is not easy, but it is very much possible to try within the limits of our capabilities. This is a concept called moral living, to be selfless and give to others at all costs. The greatest example of this is Jesus, someone who gave us redemption and sacrificed everything they had for it. Jesus was giving and an excellent example of what humans should strive to be, even if we will never be as pure. To be a human being is to have the ability and complexity of our thinking to make choices, good or bad. To have human characteristics or having a nature of people is to contemplate those decisions and make those choices. We have the ability to be good. We have the comprehension to contemplate good actions. To be human, the opportunity to do good. Works citing except what was previously mentioned throughout the speech. Definition of human was taken from dictionary.com.